welcome to Defined Pilates and Wellness. Today on Thursday Thoughts, we are joined by Joni of the Pilates Company. She teaches here in Worthing. We're talking all things Pilates, health and wellness.
Hi Charlotte, I'm Joni and I'm a Pilates teacher and my company is the Pilates Company. And thank you for having me today. I'm looking forward to having a chat with you.
That's great. Thank you so much for coming on. So just tell me a little bit about your background and how you became a Pilates instructor.
Oh, okay. So my background is very far removed from Pilates in a career sense. So in a previous life, I was a corporate and commercial lawyer in Sydney. So sitting at a desk a lot, working long hours, and I started my Pilates journey probably when I was about 24 in Sydney. My husband and I, he was my husband then, we both got really involved in Reformer Pilates, which is, if anybody doesn't know, that's the Pilates on the beds, we got quite addicted to it. We loved it for various reasons. My husband had a couple of slipped discs at different points. I think primarily now in hindsight, probably due to surfing and just weak kind of areas of his spine. And so Pilates really helped him to keep that strength, keep that kind of mobility through his spine. And he needed to do it for maintenance to be able to continue things like surfing and running and riding his bike and things like that. And for me, I did it because I just loved it and I loved the way it felt. And so we really got into it. We did a lot of mat, a lot of Reformer. And at the time I was still working, as a lawyer, and it was great for me because it just helped me, sitting a lot. If you sit a lot, you tend to have weaker glutes, maybe you don't have that core strength, and it just helped me feel strong when I was kind of doing that type of work. And it helped my mind as well. It gave me that escapism from, the day-to-day stresses of work. And then fast forward 10 years and we moved back to Worthing, both of us originally from Worthing, and I went back to law, but I had just lost all of my passion for it. It had just gone. I'd had 2 children and it just wasn't doing it for me anymore. So I had to work out what I wanted to do, and I think I just went through a process of working out what I really enjoyed. And I strongly believe that if you enjoy something and you can be good at it and you can get better at it, and it is so much more beneficial for you to do something that you enjoy. But finding out what that is really hard. So for me, it was like working out what my skills are. I'm working out that I really wanted to work with people, that I really enjoy helping people, and that I enjoyed movements. I've always been involved in dance and I just love Pilates. I think there's a logic to it and almost like an intelligence to the moves, the exercises, the precision of it. And I thought, well, why don't I give that a go? So I trained in London at Body Control Pilates, and that's kind of where I started my journey to becoming an instructor whilst I was still working in law. And then I've slowly transitioned out, qualified, and I'm doing it full time now.
Wow, that's so exciting. And so like you said, so far removed from where you started. So that's amazing. I think you're right in what you said about there being that intelligence behind the movement and being able to, I guess like we're always learning whilst you're teaching as well.
Yes.
And I don't think that ever stops. And I think that's really important. And I think as well, if you're the kind of person that doesn't like to stay still for very long, like in your journey or even just in your body, it's really, Pilates is actually really good for that.
Yeah, and I totally agree. I mean, I think there's that level of everybody's different as well. So you can see so many different bodies, and you're looking at them from that skeletal perspective as well. So when you see people, you're kind of allowing them to see themselves in a different light. I found that the most, like, people start to look at themselves differently. They start to think about their biomechanics and the way that they move and the way that they stand and they sit. And I really like the way of trying to maybe not change that, but I suppose adapt it in a way that makes them feel better about themselves, makes them move with ease. And yeah, I just think that there's so much more to it than just going to a class and just doing some exercises. And I think that that's what is so amazing about it, is that it actually gives you a better way of living, a better way of kind of seeing yourself, about moving. So yeah, that's what I love.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly right. And I also think it's really good. Like I was saying to someone the other day that my journey, I started Pilates when I was 9, so I was a dancer, and so did it alongside training. So been studying Pilates for a very long time, but I think it has changed in the method of how you teach. So it used to be like when you go to any class, everyone does the same thing, and actually it's evolved a lot more now to that each body is different. And so us as teachers, like, it's really good for us to see each person in class, and just, even if it's like a couple of things throughout the session, just making them aware of their individual movement and being able to offer different options for each person in that class, really.
Absolutely, and I think you're right. I mean, for me personally, I'm very hypermobile in a lot of my joints, but I didn't know I was hypermobile until I had a Pilates teacher tell me.
Okay.
And I was probably about 28, and by that point, I'd always struggled with my knees and not really knowing why my knees were painful. And I had always been told to soften my elbows whenever I was doing anything in class. I loved yoga, but now realised that how much having those hypermobile joints, I was kind of doing damage to myself and feeling those. I didn't know how to deal with those weaknesses. I didn't know what they were. I felt like something wasn't right. So for me, it was a kind of getting that knowledge from a teacher to then realise, actually, I've got this thing in my body that I need to be careful with. So it's really helped me control that, stabilise that, strengthen that, and just have that awareness, and then being able to pass that awareness on to others who may or may not know about their own hypermobility. So yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I think also move from that is that obviously Pilates is really good to help strengthen, and if you are suffering from hypermobility, it's one of the best things for you. And I think there's so much, especially I hear so much about yoga and how that is good for the mind and how it can increase flexibility, but sometimes that isn't what people need, and sometimes you can go to a class and the teacher doesn't necessarily tell you what you do or don't need. And I think that's where Pilates does differ, because you look at a person and say, actually, like, you're hypermobile, or actually you've got this slight rotation, and this is what you need to do. And actually back bends and goodness knows what else in yoga maybe isn't what you need right now. And I'm not saying it's not ever what that person needs, and I definitely think there's a balance. I know in my class I try and bring in relaxation and parts of yoga, because I think there are elements that are really good, and some people Pilates isn't for and yoga is, but I think it's having to, you have to believe in your teacher and kind of understand and listen to what your body needs.
I definitely agree with you, and I think that as well, in terms of the teaching, I think it's knowing that you can say one thing to a person. So maybe you need to, like you say, maybe you need to move your pelvis just slightly more to the right, or maybe you need to do this, but then explain to them why. Because as a person, you might be like, okay, well, why moving that? Why? Oh, because you do have a slight rotation in your pelvis. It just means that your right hip goes forward. So that we just have to keep thinking about bringing that back, because the issue is that might have a knock-on effect, through your spine, and explaining to people what the implications of that particular maybe movement pattern might be for them, rather than just saying, do this, do that. Do you get what I mean? Because I think that's where I didn't really understand, was I was being told to, for instance, soften my elbows, but I didn't know why. Why do I need to soften my elbows? They don't feel right. But actually, you've had to probably say, you have hypermobility in your elbows, and actually, if you kind of connect through your fingers and your shoulders, you're going to feel that release, and actually this feels so much better. And then learning about that. So I think there's an education to be had for most people about their own bodies. I mean, everybody has imbalances, everybody has things that might be slightly off. It's just the way in which our bodies are, it's the way that our daily lives have kind of allowed us to create these movement patterns that might not necessarily be the best ones. So for us and for our future bodies, I think that's probably
definitely. I mean, I know I find it easier, much easier teaching in person, which obviously this past year has not allowed. So I think, I know that I can sometimes, when you've got a full class of people, especially on a screen, it's very easy to just, kind of say as a generalized comment, oh, make sure you're not lifting your lower back, or make sure your pelvis is staying secure. And I try and back it all up with a newsletter or information over social media, so that there is that understanding and knowledge behind it, because sometimes you can't get it all out in a class.
Oh, absolutely. And it is so much harder on the screen, and especially if they're people that you haven't actually seen in person. So it's, if you don't know their bodies fully, it's a really case of trying to hone in on them, isn't it, to understand their bodies and how they move, because typically people move in the same ways. So if they have one particular movement pattern, you'll know that they will continuously do that until their body unlearns that and maybe is kind of rewired to do it differently. But it's definitely a challenge online, but it's what we have, isn't it? So we have to kind of keep everyone moving and keep ourselves going.
And I think to be able to keep people moving is such a gift. I think that we've been really fortunate to be able to continue, even if it's not in our normal circumstance.
Absolutely. I think that's it. I think sometimes, I don't know about you, but you kind of get to the point where you're like, oh, this is really hard. Like I'm really missing that kind of contact, and what I came to do is you're not being able to do, that kind of tactile feedback, trying to rely on that visual cues more than anything else. But then sometimes you get the feedback where you're like, this is literally the thing that's keeping some people going. So if you're doing that, then it's worth it all, isn't it? So
definitely. So why do you think people should do Pilates, and who do you feel that Pilates can help?
I think that so in terms of who, did you say who? Well, I think you'll probably agree that Pilates is for everybody. It doesn't matter your age or male or female. It's about biomechanics. It's about how we move and how we operate as humans. And I think that is applicable to children all the way up to, I've got people in my classes, and then I've got one 90-year-old in one of my classes, and she takes progressions, and I'm in complete awe of her and her ability to, her mobilization. And so I think it's for everyone. I mean, I started when I was 24, and I think probably a bit like yourself, coming from that kind of dancer background, where you spent probably a lot of time in extension, your spine, me with my hypermobility. I didn't know how I was using my body. I was unaware of what I was doing to my body, and kind of almost throwing it around without that level of control. So learning that control of how to move is so important for everyone, I think. I've got men, women, and I think the age range spans from mid-20s up to the 90s. And they're all, a lot of them, especially online, are in the same class. We give progressions and regressions for depending on, who we are. And I think we all know what our clients are all capable of, and they know as well. So it's kind of finding that balance, isn't it? But I think in simple terms, people should do Pilates to future-proof their bodies. Because I think if we were all doing Pilates from our mid-20s, we would all be much healthier, older adults. And when I say older, like anyone over the age of probably about 30. Because, the discs start to degenerate between our spines as we get older. We lose collagen, we lose our ability to be kind of move with ease just as we get older. And just, it's like WD-40 for the joints. It's kind of maintaining that good movement patterns. It's I think it's ability to have that foresight. It's a bit like trying to it's a bit like an insurance policy, I suppose, in some respects. It's, you know, you pay into an insurance policy or a pension. Okay, it's a bit like a pension. So you pay into a pension because you're thinking about, you know, when I'm 60, 65 and I'm going to retire, I want to withdraw from that pension. I think it's the same concept. You're investing in your body to help you now, but also to help you as you get older, so you don't have those aches and pains, so you don't have things that hurt you, you don't end up with debilitating pain and poor movement patterns. And I think so it's a case of looking after yourself now, but also with the view that you're going to end up having this, you know, great mobile body.
I think that's a really good way of looking at it. I think you're exactly right. Yeah, clients in my class, and I think that they really appreciate what they can do now. Like, they've been with me for a little while, and actually they can kind of see the progression as well. And I think that it just helps keep them moving. And, you know, yeah, whatever age you are, I think, yes, if you could start younger, then that's great. And just, yeah, like, I have some of my clients that, you know, all of us, even if it's not a client, you wake up in the morning, you feel a little bit stiff, and, you know, just the basic exercises get your body moving, and just a little bit each day, and it will maintain that along the way.
Absolutely, yeah, and it is that maintenance. And I think, you know, I especially of having had children, so I'm qualified for pregnancy and postnatal, and again, if I knew what I had known now when I was pregnant, even prior to being pregnant, I mean, I did Pilates then, but I wasn't sure why I was doing it. I did it because it was low impact and because I wanted to continue to exercise. But actually, like, for people to know what the benefits are for their pelvis, for their spine, because it changes you fundamentally as a woman, and how your body then afterwards moves and mobilizes. So I just, it's knowledge, isn't it? It's knowledge about your own body, about what you go through, whatever your background is. You know, if you're sitting at a desk all day, what are you doing to your spine? What are you doing to your pelvis? What are you doing to your glutes? You know, maybe you're a runner, but actually maybe you don't have that much movement or range in your ankles or your knees, or maybe your glutes are weak, which you might end up with knee. It's all connected, and I think whatever you do, it's basically a life cross trainer, isn't it? It's basically whatever other things you do, whether it is yoga, running, cycling, surfing, you know, sitting at a desk all day. It's a life, it's cross training for life, really, to get you to be able to do all those things with ease, I think.
Definitely, yeah. And I think as well, like, a lot of people suffer from a lot of the same thing, and some people just aren't aware, and until you start looking at it and you start to break it down, you can see how that, if you do something in Pilates, how it might help the glutes, or it might help the hip flexors, or like that, and that you can then just transfer that into whichever other you're working in.
I think you're right, because I don't know, you know, you're probably the same. When you have your enrollment form, I would say 95% of my clients tick the box that they sit for long periods of time, which automatically you think, well, you look at what else they're doing, and if they're not doing any other kind of exercise regimes, or that, you know, that build the glutes, and, you know, all of the glutes, not just the gluteus maximus, you know that they're probably going to have weak glutes, and then you think, well, okay, well, this is going to have repercussions up and down the body. So, you know, what are their knees doing? How does this affect their spine? Do they have any lower back pain? So there are other questions, you know, what's their posture like? And it all stems from that one tick of a box to know, okay, well, this is what I've got to look for. And and like you say, that affects so many people, whether they're sitting at a desk or sitting on the sofa, and whether they've got, you know, stretched, weakened hip flexors as well. So you can kind of generalize to a certain degree, and then understand what people are doing every day as well, which, like you say, it might be other things as well. It might be that they're really into running, or they're really into I think other sports that actually will, okay, you know that this is what you're going to need to work with them on.
Yeah, and I think it's so good, so true what you said about the form. My form's quite long, but actually that first box, you can kind of tell how it's going to go for the rest of the form. But it's so important to have that and to have that knowledge, and especially if you're going to start to work one-to-one with someone, because you can go so much deeper than a general class, and you can really get to understand and get to the bottom of what the real problem is. So
yeah, absolutely, yeah, agree.
So what do you do for your own wellness and mental well-being?
That's a very difficult question right now. What do I do? I would say there's probably two things that I have to do. One is I have to eat well. And when I say eat well, I just have to eat good, substantial, loads and loads and loads of vegetables. And that's not to say that I don't eat bad stuff. I love red wine, but I do have to fuel myself with really good stuff. Because I just need that energy, and if I didn't do that, I think I'd feel tired, and I'm not sure I could cope right now. I'm tired. So definitely eating lots of healthy foods, and I have to get outside. So I have to go for a walk, often on my own. I'm at home with two small children and a puppy right now, so it's often the half an hour of solitude a day that's helping me get through. But I really enjoy it. I try to go out in the morning, whatever the weather, not the wind, I don't mind the rain, and just walk, listen to music. It's harder in the evenings in the dark, so I'm looking forward to the summer of being able to do, or the spring even, getting out in the evening. But and now I've got Fred, now we can walk with the puppy, so that's going to be nice as well. But yeah, those two things, eating good food and getting out, they're the two things that help me stay balanced-ish.
I think that's important, isn't it? Especially, I found that fresh air really helps, and I'm so grateful that I have a dog as well. Just, on a grey, rainy day, it's so easy to just think, oh no, I won't go anywhere. But actually, the dog kind of forces you out. But even without the dog, I think it's just, even if you stand on your front step or something, just breathe in air, I think it just helps so much, and just helps to relax the shoulders a little bit.
Yeah, and I think that's it. You don't need much. Sometimes I've been known to go upstairs to the drive and sit on the wall and drink my coffee just on my own, fresh air, like if I haven't got the time to get out. But it's just, especially just if sometimes in your house it just feels a bit more like you're kind of confined, so it's and not being able to escape to the studio, and you're kind of lock yourself in a different room. So however small.
And so if you had one wellness tip that you wanted to pass on to other people, what would it be?
One wellness tip. Oh, I don't know whether I've got any tips. I think to try and eat well as much as you possibly can, but also allow yourself those indulgences. And I think actually my tip would be to get out. I think that's the biggest thing for me, is to get out in nature as much as you can, and listen to music. If that's your thing, that's my thing. I love listening to music outside, so that helps clear my head and connect me a little bit more to something that's bigger than me, being outside.
Yeah, I think that's what's great about being in nature, isn't it? Whether you're in the woods, by the sea, just outside, you can just let everything go, and just whether you're music or just silence, or the street sounds around you. I think it's just, you kind of take a moment to just appreciate what is around you, and also just think that actually there's so much bigger than just me. Absolutely, definitely, Charlotte. Oh, well, thank you so much for having a chat with me today. It's been lovely.
That's my pleasure.
If you've enjoyed today's Thursday Thoughts, please like and subscribe to my channel.